The meeting will come to order. We have a quorum tonight with Mr. Steenberger and Mr. Torres absent.
And it is 7 p.m.
Oh, 7 p.m. Will you please lead us in prayer? Thank you.
God will be pleased. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Please help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Amen.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now start with our student reports.
Madam Chairman, tonight we welcome our second graders from Frost Elementary. It turns out they won't be finding the turkey. We'll all have to wait for that until next week for that activity. But they will be sharing personal narratives about their fall experiences. So please help me welcome our Frost Flyers.
Good evening. My name is Mrs. Polk, and I'd like for our second graders to introduce themselves to you.
My name is Kendall Haney. My name is Neil Pham. Hello, my name is Eric Garcia. My name is Izzy Black.
Our second graders have been using the writing process to write personal narratives about a favorite memory of theirs from fall. They started with brainstorming and accessing their schema, their background knowledge, to come up with ideas for what they wanted to write about. They used books and pictures to do that, and then they moved on to a rough draft. After they wrote their rough draft, we began the revising and editing process and ended with a final copy. And so now they'd like to read those for you.
Crunch, crunch, crunch went the leaves while I was raking them in the fall. I felt them crumble at the bottom of my feet. I raked all of them into a tall hill. When I looked at the round pile, I thought it would be perfect to jump in. I backed up from the mountain of color and raced towards it with excitement. I leaped into the air and flew into the hill of leaves. They scattered into the wind and landed softly on the lawn. This is one of the best moments of fall. I glanced up and saw the squirrels racing up the trees because the flying leaves frightened them. I wondered how high they would go. The breezy wind blew my hair wildly, and the leaves twirled everywhere. As the red, green, brown, yellow, and orange leaves blew around, it was very beautiful. All of a sudden, the wind stopped, and it grew darker, and the air got cooler. It started sprinkling. Then a flash of lightning grew in the sky. It was time to go inside. What a fabulous time it was. I thought that next year I would want to do this fun activity again.
Wow. Very good.
Squeak, squeak, squeaked the swing as I swung among the cool breeze in my imagination. Mom, Mom, take me to the park. It is a cool fall day after school. As we arrived at the park, the sun began to set low. I raced fast towards the swings and plopped into a seat. I started to pump my legs and go back and forth until I felt like touching the evening sky. When I touched the sky, I felt free. As I was swinging, the world around me became peaceful and quiet. Even though there was laughter and kids shouting, I was able to clear my mind and get calm. When my swing lifted me forward, I felt like flying like a bird. Up high, I saw the setting sun shining bright orange colors on the fall leaves. It sounded like the fall was talking back to me. This was one of my favorite fall memories ever. Happy birthday. A song came from my iPad. It was very loud, so loud it woke me up. It was October 12th. Yay! It was my birthday, and I was very excited. I opened my eyes and saw beautiful, colorful wrapping paper in front of me. When I dove into the presents I felt the wrapping paper. It felt bumpy. I heard my family tell me to open them, open them, open them, they chanted. I wanted to get into the presents really fast so I could find out what was in them. Whoa, I can't believe how much money I got, I yelled so loud. The total of the money from my family, cousins, and aunt was $140. My family always gets cash for their birthdays. I am saving my money for college because it is very expensive. At the end of the most amazing party ever, I did a cool magic trick with the saved colorful wrinkled wrapping paper. Everybody liked it. I love this day and fall with the great presents.
Bang went the pumpkin when my mom put it on the plastic on my garage floor. I was excited to decorate it for my pumpkin extravaganza. It is a contest where kids make a character pumpkin from their favorite book. I was hoping my Ella project from Greetings from Somewhere would be the best. I started off tracing the pencil lines with black paint. I wanted Ella to look as pretty as she does in the book. So I worked carefully. When my mom poured the brown paint, I knew it was time to design the eyes. I dipped my dopper brush in the colored liquid and made a big circle and a little circle in it. They looked beautiful, I thought. For the mouth, we used a bright red color. It reminded me of a ripe strawberry. When we stepped back and looked at my creation, I thought it was perfect. My mom had a smile on her face when she said, "Now it is ready to go to your school library." I could imagine my pumpkin being the best one of all. I will always remember this project. I hope this will be a tradition and I can do it again next fall. Thank you for having us. We hope you enjoyed our stories.
Thank you, boys and girls.
Second graders.
I have a second
Yeah.
grader.
And these are,
That's for second.
Madam Chairman, these were second graders. I couldn't do that well in ninth grade, so awesome job.
Plus getting up in front of everybody, right? The next item will be the recognitions and awards.
We do not have any recognitions or awards this evening, Madam Chairman.
I would
Well,
like, excuse me, I would like to interject one thing. I don't know if this is a rewards or not. I met with a Mr. Clint Coker, president of the Sweets of Hope organization, and they live in East Bernard. And he approached me at a scrimmage, and he said, "I just want to thank you on behalf of our organization. Lamar High School and George High School had created a fundraising, and they raised over $7,000 to give to this group, and I had not heard of that before. So I wanted to commend those two schools for donating to the Sweets of Hope. It is an organization for those who have cancer, for their families to stay in Houston. Okay. So thank you.
We do have some introductions this evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'd like to introduce you to the new principal at Huggins Elementary, Janice Harvey. Janice is joined by her husband this evening, Mike. Janice is a December '94 graduate of Texas A&M University with a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies. She received her master's in 2008 in administration and supervision from U of H Victoria. She has 21 years of experience in education, including 14 years of teaching in Fort Bend and Lamar, and 7 years as a Lamar administrator. She has started in her new role. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Next, I'd like to introduce you to the new Director of Transportation, Mike Jones. He's an August '93 graduate of Stephen F. Austin State University with a bachelor's degree in psychology. He has 27 years of transportation experience, including 6 years as a general manager for Durham Transportation and 21 years as a director in Center ISD, Lufkin ISD, and most recently Friendswood. He has also started in the role. Congratulations.
Congratulations. That's it. Our next item on the agenda is audience to patrons.
There are none, Madam Chairman.
Next item will be approval of minutes for the October 13th special meeting workshop.
Madam Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes for the special meeting workshop of October 13th.
Second.
All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes for October 15th, our regular board meeting.
I move that we approve the regular board meeting from October 15th minutes.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is board members' reports.
Madam Chairman, we did have a facilities meeting today. We went over both the 2011 bond and the 2014 bond, and the 2011, he did reiterate that, of course, how well received the dedication ceremony was for Arredondo just last week. Well attended. Churchill Fulcher Junior High School and Dean Lehman Junior High School are both on schedule, and they're just waiting tonight for us to approve the colors so they can get busy with the locker rooms and all the places the color will show up. So they're eagerly awaiting that. They're moving forward with getting our Ag Barn number 2. Design work is scheduled to begin in December. And they're anticipating approval for proposal to do the geotechnical investigation report will be on the December or January board agenda. And other than that, all the projects that we need going are going very well for and finishing up well for the 2011 bond. 2014, we got a little bit of more information about elementary school number 24. We'll be approving a couple of things on our agenda tonight and moving forward with that. Hopefully, they can get moving faster and sooner than later. Again, Pink Elementary School, they're working with the foundation repairs there. Let's see, and we're selection of consultants in process for all the other items that were on the 2014 bond. We should be bringing to the board for us to do some interviewing and get those underway soon too. Okay.
Thank you.
And just as a lighter note, I was on the Prize Patrol bus last Friday, and for those that aren't aware, our foundation, LEAF, hands out grants for the teachers that apply, and over, I think, 150, 170 teachers got grants, or groups got grants, over $317,000, and It was fun because we did go to my old school where I used to teach, and I got to hand out the grants to some of our old teammates. So anyway, it was a very exciting day, and I'm very proud of the teachers, and I'm very proud of our LEAF that they can work so hard to get the teachers and students such wonderful materials. And so, other than that, thank you.
Thank you to Leaf.
Yes.
Is there any other reports?
Yes, Madam Chairman, you and I attended the meeting with the senator on Tuesday. Just a few things that some of the other people, the other districts talked about. It was a meeting, a roundtable meeting that included several districts that she serves. A couple of things that were interesting to me that we don't necessarily face so much of a challenge, and I believe that that has to do with the fact that we make sure that we are always competitive with our salaries for our teachers, but a lot of the districts are having a difficult time recruiting teachers, keeping teachers, and I just want to say that I appreciate all the years that Lamar has made sure that we don't have that challenge. A few things that she did talk about and all of the other board members seem to be concerned about was the Board of Education, just too many TEKs, adding TEKs year after year, that we are losing the responsibility of teaching critical thinking and in-depth learning. I feel like we have a partner with her, so just when you see her, if you see her, she is a wealth of knowledge, and she is out there. She truly is advocating for real life teaching in our classrooms, and that was really good to see that we finally have some type of representation that knows and cares about what our real life challenges are in the classrooms. She was not just pro kids, but pro teachers, which is always nice to see.
And I'll interject, Ms. Coker's indicated to us that this was our first meeting with just board members, and she wants to meet with us again, probably, she said, January or February, to have input from every district. And I believe this is the first time that this has ever been done. And we felt it was very generous of her to give us the time and to listen. And I think Ms. Coker's is going to be a very big advocate for education. Are there any other meetings? I had, like she said, I had attended this roundtable too. I also attended the SHAC meeting, and in their discussions, it seemed like there was a lot more training that we need to do with the staff and with the students about food serving, and they indicated that we'll have some more training for the people that actually work with the students. They did discuss lunch breaks and how rushed the students are, and they're going to try and come up with some ideas and present them to the board. We did hire a new nutritionist. I don't know if anybody is here from that section.
Dietitian.
Dietitian, sorry about that. It was very informative, and I hope to attend the next meeting. The Arredondo dedication was very well represented. There was a lot of people there, a lot of family, very large family, and I'm sure they were very honored for the recognition for Mr. Arredondo. And I think that was it. Next item are superintendent reports.
I think everyone is aware that the George Ranch girls volleyball team, they left this afternoon, and they'll be playing in the state finals tomorrow. And then we've got Foster High School will be at U of H, and George Ranch High School will be at the Berry Center tomorrow night. So.
Very exciting. How many are going? Everybody. Okay. The next item is the public hearing on the financial integrity rating system of Texas, first for our fiscal year 2013 to 2014.
Good evening. I'm pleased to present our financial accountability management report, which is a requirement that we present to the public once a year. The primary goal of School First is to achieve quality performance in the financial management of the school district's financial resources. The commissioner must include uniform indicators to measure the district's financial management performance. The long-term benefits are intended to improve the management of school district finances through the monitoring process and also to improve transparency. Major changes have been made to the financial integrity rating system this year, and they actually came about in 2013 through House Bill 5, but they were finalized in August of this year. The commissioner is required to include processes for anticipating financial solvency over the years. The changes that have come about in 2015 are going to be phased in over a 3-year period. There's varying numbers and types of indicators in the next 3 years. The report that I'm covering tonight covers the financial year or the fiscal year 2013-14. And so let me tell you how these ratings are released and the timing. The fiscal year 13-14 ended August 31st, 2014. After all of that data and our reports are finalized, they're submitted to TEA in January of the following year, which would be 2015. And that's when the state looks at everything that we've submitted through financial reports and PEMS, and then they conclude their rating system processes at some point during the summer, typically. And then ratings are released either late summer or early fall. So the 2013-14 ratings are released during the 14-15 school year. Last year, there were 20 indicators. One of the changes that is being phased in is this particular year, there's 7 indicators. So it's very important that you do very well on all 7 because there's so few. Of the 7, 4 are critical indicators, 1 is a solvency indicator, and 2 are financial competency indicators. The preliminary ratings were released August 7th of this year, and the final was released on October 22nd. The 14-15 ratings, which will be released during 15-16, and the 15-16 ratings that will be released in 16-17 will each have 15 indicators instead of the 7 that are this year. They'll be the same type categories of ratings. The ratings next year will also require higher scores, and so they're ramping up the system somewhat. The requirements under this rating system are to prepare this annual financial report, which you received a full report, and it has to include a description of the district's performance on the indicators, the management performance for this year and the previous year's rating, and also various descriptive information that includes the superintendent's contract and compensation and fees paid to the superintendent from other school districts or outside entities. Summary schedules are also required. Certain items, reimbursements that are received by the superintendent and each board member are included in this report. Gifts from vendors valued at $250 or more to the superintendent, the executive staff, board members, and immediate families are reported. Business transactions between board members and the school district, and then various other descriptive information. As I said earlier, there are 7 financial management indicators this year in the areas of critical, solvency, and financial competence. There are only 2 ratings. You either get a P for pass or an F for substandard achievement. There's 4 critical indicators that are yes or no answers. Of course, if you get a no, it's an automatic F. Ratings on the remaining 3 indicators have point scores. The maximum score you can receive is 30 points because they're worth 10 apiece. And then, of course, your coding has to comply with the resource guide. Achievement rankings, if you receive a score of 16 to 30, you pass. Below 16 is substandard achievement. I'll cover the various categories of indicators now. Indicator 1 Of course, is a yes or no answer, and they want to know if you completed and submitted your annual financial report to TEA by the deadline. Our deadline is August 28th, because our year ends is January 28th, because our year ends in August. We did meet that for both years. Indicator 2 requires an unmodified opinion on the financial report, and the district did meet that each year. Indicator 3 has to do with whether we are in compliance with all of our debt payments, which we were in compliance both years. And indicator 4 asks whether our total unrestricted net asset balance in the statement of net assets exceeds 0 for the year. And of course it does. But also fast growth districts can pass this test without having a net positive net assets balance if they've increased in membership more than 10% in the past 5 years. So we actually pass that as well. And that's because that statement of net assets gets sort of convoluted and when debt is increasing because of the debt incurred by fast growth districts that are have aggressive building programs. The one solvency indicator, which is indicator number 5, concerns our administrative cost ratio. Of course, that rate, they compute our ratio and compare it to a standard. And the stated threshold this year is 8.55%. So our administrative cost ratio has to be below 8.55%. It's significantly reduced this year because the standard was 11.05% in prior years. Points, of course, this is one of the 10-point ratios or indicators. And if your ratio is above 8.55%, you lose various numbers of points. And you end up with 0 points if it exceeds 18.55%. Our ratio this year was 4.74%. Typically, we're a little bit below 5%. So of course, we pass that ratio. The 6th ratio has to do with whether our PEMS information agrees to our financial report that we submitted. Their requirement is that the difference or variance between the two is less than 3%. So of course, they're measuring data quality. Our ratio for the current year is 0.0017%, so it's way less than 1%. And the prior year was about the same. Indicator number 7 involves whether our audit report noted that our financials were free of any instances of material weaknesses in internal controls over financial reporting and compliance for local, state, or federal funds. Our external auditors audit many different things in addition to the details of transactions. Mainly, they do audit our internal control systems, and so I want to talk about that a little bit. Internal control systems are processes and procedures that provide management with reasonable assurance that assets are safeguarded, transactions have been authorized by the appropriate parties, financial reporting is reliable, and that the district is in compliance with laws and regulations. A weakness in the system of internal control creates risk, and the risk is that those objectives would not be met. A material weakness indicates that the design or the operation of the components of the internal control system don't reduce to a relatively low level the risk that we won't meet those qualifications and there could be a material misstatement or non-compliance with laws and regulations. The internal control system should help employees to identify those problems in the normal operation and in the normal course of performing their duties. We had no material weaknesses this year or in prior years. With the additional requirements from Edgar, the new regulations, we're reviewing our current written procedures and also monitoring daily practice to ensure that we don't have this problem in the future. Now to our ratings. This is just a summary. We've had superior achievement under the previous system, and we did pass this year as well with 30 points. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Jill. Are there any comments or questions? We will go then to the action items. And we will establish a consent agenda. We will start with instructional A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, B4 can,
You have to pull it.
we'll have to pull that one.
As well as
B5,
And B5 is being pulled, but it's under presentation.
right. B6, we'll pull that one. B7, B8, B9. I would like to pull B10. B11, C1. May I have a motion to approve?
Madam Chairman, make a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Second.
Are there any oppositions? We've got B, we got one, okay. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. So we will go back to B4.
Madam Chairman, we ask that the Board of Trustees cast by resolution its 561 votes for a candidate for the Board of Directors of the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District. And if the board will recall, the board nominated Rhonda Zacharias for the position.
Do I have a motion?
Now we set the, now we make a motion that we put our votes toward
To,
The 561.
561 votes for Rhonda Zacharias.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. B5, consideration of the adoption of the Churchill Fulcher Junior High School mascot and school colors.
Mr. Danny Ward, our high school principal, will do a short presentation.
Good evening. Boy, I'm ready to get this secret out. I'm tired of holding on to this.
I think it's kind of left.
This is very exciting and historical. I'm going to present the possible 5th mascot and colors for Lamar Consolidated. When you look at a mascot, you have to research both Churchill, Fulcher Jr., and the area. After doing the research, we came up with 8 possible mascots, 4 that were horses, 4 that dealt with people that worked with horses. We also allowed students and community members to do a write-in candidate. Anytime you're working with teenagers and you do a write-in, you get real nervous. And I will tell you, we did have one cucumber, and luckily we didn't have a lot of kids do the same thing on that. But we had 2 student meetings, the 8th grade and current 9th grade, and then we had 2 parent and community meetings. After we tallied all the votes, 48% of our community, parents, and students picked the Charger. The Charger is a horse that's prepared for battle, and the term hard charger came from horses that would go in without fear into a fight. And I think it's a perfect mascot for Fulcher. We also looked at 8 possible color combinations, and when we counted the votes, purple and black came on top with 41% of the vote, or 43% of the vote, I'm sorry. And, but both those colors are dark, so you've got a purple and a black, so the accents are going to have to be a white and silver to make it kind of stand out. Right now, we're looking at possible drawings and stuff for our mascot. We're also looking at the possibility of how it goes into a uniform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a simulation of a possible, again, this is just a possible uniform because I want to wait till we get our coach on board because I want him to have input on that. And so when you're looking at this one, we're gonna go with the black and the purple and separate them on the bottom and the top. This would be a home uniform. And then, of course, when we go away, we'd have to have a white and then put the purple in the numbers or the blacks. But again, we want to wait till our coach gets on board with what he wants to do on that. Also, I'm going to show you some possible, well, these are mascots that come from other schools, not ours, but these are the kind of the thinkings that other schools have had for Charger. The good thing is, when I researched the state of Texas, there's only 4 other Chargers in the state of Texas. So we're really getting a mascot that's unique in the state. And so when we play other teams, I don't see us going up against another Charger, which is kind of nice. You know, there's all kinds of Bulldogs and Panthers and, you know, those kind of things, but we'll be very unique. So it is my hope that the board will approve the Chargers as the official mascot and purple and black as the official colors. If you have any questions about the process or anything I've shown you tonight, I'll be glad to answer those questions for you. All right, I appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me tonight.
Thank you. Well, I know someone who's itching to make a motion, so are there any motions?
I make a motion that we approve the Wilshire High School mascot and colors, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. The next item was discussion and action on naming the new schools. Is there a discussion?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we revise the current local policy to read, "The responsibility of naming facilities rests with the board. School facilities shall generally be named for person or places. If the name of a person is to be considered, that individual shall be deceased." Instead of deceased, I make a motion that we let it read deceased or living.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I'd have a little bit, just because you'd think after 2.5 years on the board, it'd be surprised that this is what brought people calling me and coming up to me. And again, it is after, you said it was 1999 since the last time we came up, so it is time for us to revisit some policies and update them. I think their concern, and it's something we brought up before, that the deceased, they can't get themselves in any more trouble. And, but I think that we need to, I don't know if we need to put this in here or not, but it needs to be for future boards, because we are making this for future boards, that we look very closely at all the nominations and take the best off the top, and if they are deceased, not to be saying that we have to do that, but that we make sure that our responsibility is that we're taking the best names possible. And I don't know if we need to reiterate that somewhere or not. That's just my opinion, and it was some things that had been mentioned to me, that we're not just making the responsibility for us, but for future boards.
Would you like to?
The only thing that I would respond to that is, that's why I wanted to keep the deceased, so that,
Should we do and/or?
and/or, if you choose, that'd be okay with me.
Okay. That might be, so that we're looking at.
Would you like for me to reread it?
No,
No.
but I was wondering if we could say it as and/or, not just.
Mr. Morris?
Just as a point of reference, you can't be both deceased and living.
Well, that's true, but you can look at both.
So
We're
we-
looking at both types. So is it just say the
You just might want
list?
to go with or.
Oh, just the or.
The or.
Okay,
Or leave the and.
But to make sure that we understand that we are.
As a part of the guidelines that, if you remember when Mr. Rockwood shared with you the process and the procedures, we can maybe come up with some type of language as a part of that so that it reminds
Future
the
boards.
future boards of what the intent is.
Ms.
Is that
Basinger,
okay?
my intent for that is not to eliminate anyone who is deceased, absolutely not. Just to look at both fairly, equally, and choose the best choice based on the two options.
Then I have a question as to what would be, do we put it into our CW local? If we do nominate someone that is living and there is something that does happen that their name would have to be removed, would that be something essential to put in here? What would be the ramifications?
Well, the board would have the authority at a later date. If you wanted to make a name change, it would be within your power to do that, should that circumstance arise.
So we do not have to put that in here for right now?
No.
Okay.
Well, as a point of reference, I think that we've had a name change on a school before, because we did used to have Crockett, and that has now been changed to Seguin, so I don't know how the process went, so.
I'd have to research it, I'm not
Okay,
sure.
but I do know that we have had a name change in our district, not too.
But actually, when this policy was put in place, it was put in place when they changed Fulshire Elementary to Huggins Elementary. They actually did a name change.
Okay.
So we have a motion,
And that wasn't 99, I'm sorry. That was back.
That was it, that was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
That was about
Before
20
that.
years.
During our research, that's where we found that, I didn't realize that it was called Fulshire. At least that's what the paperwork says.
Okay.
Can I make a recommendation that I think will assist but will still carry the import of the language you want? Maybe it should read that the nominee may be deceased or living and shall have attained prominence. So that it can be one or the other, starting with the deceased, but and shall have attained prominence.
Okay.
And since, Ms. Roberts, you made the motion, if you're agreeable to that, because you own the motion, and if it's agreed to you, and I believe you seconded it, Ms. Danziger,
No, it's-
then with that wordsmithing understood, then the board could vote on the motion.
I'm agreed to that.
Did you say wordsmithing?
Wordsmithing, please.
I'm good. That makes me feel better, and I think, like, my little old lady's at the retirement group.
now, a question, when we're talking, the nominee may be living or deceased, I'm not sure if I'm asking a question, but it says for a facility, after 5B, it says for a facility named after a place. The nomination should include its historical relevance. We still leave that?
Yes.
That's
that-
totally a
that
different,
would- That would not change.
a different change,
the,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in agreement for that
Do you
wording?
need to reread that?
So we have a motion and seconded to change the facility named after a person. The following shall apply. Number one, the nominee may be living or deceased.
Deceased.
Deceased
Or deceased
Deceased.
first?
Yes.
May be deceased
Deceased or living, and shall have attained prominence locally or nationally, with local prominence taking precedence in the fields of education, science, art, statesmanship, political science, or military achievement. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. May I have a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. The next item is 10, consider approval of the memorandum of understanding with neighborhood centers. Do I have,
I have a couple of questions.
Well,
We have to make a motion first.
Can I make a motion that we accept the, is it
113? 113?
Yeah, I was just trying to see if it's a contract
Yes.
Memorandum of
Okay,
understanding,
approve the
yes.
memorandum of understanding between Lamar Consolidated Independent School District and Neighborhood Centers. I'll make that motion.
I second.
Now you're ready.
Now we can have discussion.
Thank you. Mrs. Lyons, we discussed this briefly, but after I went home and thought about some things, I have some additional questions. Currently, according to this agreement, we provide a facility and then the facility costs, so electricity, things like that.
Correct.
Outside of that, we don't have any input in curriculum or
They have their own curriculum.
everything is done. So I guess my question is that why would we be partnering with them and providing a facility rather than just leasing this facility to them? So that we're not, if we're not a part of their curriculum and everything that our mission, philosophy, vision is.
We have always partnered with Head Start, Tri-County previously, and now with Neighborhood Centers, because it's in our best interest to have our kids educated as early as possible, so that they will be kindergarten ready when they come to start school. So we feel like it's a good partnership, and it's been a long-standing one.
Well, and
one-
I don't disagree.
And one of the other advantages is that you can actually extend their day because they come to, they'll go to school part-time at that facility, and then we flip them with Beasley Elementary, so some of those kids will be actually getting almost a full day of instruction. That was the arrangement that we had before.
I guess my only concern is that we don't have any input in the curriculum that is going to be taught. And I don't disagree with you that it is beneficial for these kids to be in school. But, for example, we have Seguin that the school has fully employed and implemented. And if something happens, we are fully responsible. But in a situation like this, we don't have any, I feel like we have the responsibility without the authority. Does that make sense?
I hear you completely, but I will say this is a federally funded program, so I'm sure there's lots of checkpoints in place to make sure that they're being, they meet the letter of the law as far, in terms of what they should be doing with our kids.
And do we know why we want to go ahead and start in January and not just wait? I feel like we're kind of rushing this. Is this something that?
We made the decision to wait after we found out about the change over of who was holding the contract. And so we started to get some concerns brought to our attention from the people of Powell Point, specifically the mayor. And I completely understood those concerns because we had kids that could be receiving instructional services but weren't because we hadn't initiated this contract, because we were waiting for the beginning of the school to settle down and everything to get running smoothly before broaching that subject.
So you feel like the people in the community really want this program in their community?
Definitely.
And may I have a question? That besides education, are they feeding them too?
Yes.
Okay, so they're meeting all their needs?
Mhm.
And because you say they're flipping, so some go in the morning and some go in the afternoon?
We don't have that arrangement right now.
Okay.
But we plan to in the future. And it was what we had in place with Tri-County Head Start.
Okay, because I know we feed them breakfast and lunch, even if they're half-day, correct? So they would still be getting that plus another meal, or not really? It's-
Breakfast, lunch, and snacks.
Okay.
Do any of the children go full day, or is it all half day?
For this MOU,
No.
it's,
Now, right now?
it-
You mean-
right now, we're talking about half a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
That's
7:40.
not-
Wait.
7:40 to 2:30, or 2 something.
But the ones-
I messed it up by talking about the flipping because I got ahead of it. They'll actually be using the facility currently for this purpose, through this MOU, to serve the kids during the school day, and I think they get out around 2:30 or so.
But right now, these same children, if they're pre-K, are going to Beasley? Is that
No,
what you-
some of them are at home.
Oh, so none of them are,
This is
some of them are
it's
getting.
just Powell Point.
These are 3 and 4-year-olds.
3 and 4-year-olds.
3 and
so they're not
4-year-olds. This is
getting-
not
They're not
pre-K.
getting anything.
Right.
Okay,
This is not
so
pre-K.
by not having this, okay, we need to get them into school.
Well, and again, I don't disagree, I just, I'm concerned about, again, the responsibility without the authority. It appears to me that we could be better just leasing a facility to them, but I'm not going to disagree that what's best for the kids is what we need to do, so.
I have a question. We have Seguin, and it's through the school district. We have goals, we have assessments, and my understanding is we're going to be keeping record of them through their elementary years to see if our program was really helping them.
Oh, the program at Seguin?
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, and that would, Ms. Stewart is over early childhood education, and that's something that we could share that information with you. In fact, for the stewardship report, we've already compiled that information to share with you.
I guess what my deal is, 3-year-olds are very young, and they developmentally, they need to be with their families. Their families may be dysfunctional, maybe only one mother, one father, but taking away that time from them and sending them to the school and not offering them transportation, there's a lot of those that are going to still be at home. I'm wondering, how do we get to those that cannot get to us? The ones that usually can drive them to the school, most of those parents are working or they have transportation. Why wouldn't they be going to Beasley through our system, just like we have through our system at Seguin, where we can monitor what they're being taught, how they're developing? It seems to me at Powell Point, we're just going to send them there, but we have no way of keeping records of how are these students are going to be performing.
Okay.
To me, it sounds like a child care, 3 to 4-year-olds. And I wonder why we can't have some assessments with this.
I believe that would be up to the Head Start agency to compile those assessments and report that data to their reporting, whoever they report to.
And I think we can certainly request that, but I also know that there was a number of individuals who expressed concerns that there were no programs offered to those kids in the Kendleton community. And so, because we had the partnership before, the facility is there, we felt like that, and again, it's in our best interest to get to these kids as early as possible, and I think that's what the recommendation is based on. If the Head Start people are not here this evening, but they certainly can provide whatever report the board wants to see whether or not it's meeting the board's requirements. I think even because we're doing an MOU, we can ask them for things through an MOU that we can't ask for example, through the use of just renting the facility.
Last year, we had Head Start was doing in the same facility that we would be.
We had students at Powell Point.
And how many, do you know how many students
Not off the
participated
top of
in
my
that?
head. Not
They
from,
anticipated like 98 or something?
She-
I
That's
think
what she
Is
said.
that what she
that
said?
will be there.
Oh.
That's what
under
she
this
That was
program.
what she thinks.
Under
would
this
be-
program.
Oh, this.
I just have a concern that we do have an early childhood education at Seguin. And if we want that type of an education, why not establish through our district at Powell Point a group like that that is sponsored by us, by the school district?
Seguin's not.
Because that's going to cost us.
have our kids from, like in Rosenberg, to go to Powell Point? Is that what
Well,
you're?
the students that you're saying, the parents are saying they're not getting any help. What age group are we doing in Richmond right now? Is it the three,
4-year-olds.
or is it the 3 and 4?
Right now, just 4-year-olds.
Okay, so we have not gone down to the 3-year-olds yet.
No.
Early childhood is my expertise, and I just cannot visualize 3-year-olds going into this type of a program. They're not developmentally, there are so many things. They're not potty trained, they have to learn. And I'm a keen advocate of home environment. And I figured it up, they'll be in school for, out of 18, up to the age of 18, they'll be in school for 15 years. And I'm more concerned about the 3-year-olds. I don't know that I'd have so much of a difference about 4-year-olds, but why are we going down to a 3-year-old? And that's just,
It's just an early intervention for these students.
we have ECI, don't we? For those that do need some assistance in English or developmental delays, that early childhood intervention, not?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
Maybe I'm misquoting it. At the age of 3, the state requires us to take in children if the parents come in and say, we have a concern, and then they're assessed. What program is that called?
I think she's referring to the program for example, if my child has some speech problems, then I take them into, and the district provides speech therapy.
Correct.
Things like that.
And we do that as a district.
Or they're in PPCD.
Yeah, but I'm thinking the 3-year-olds, if we can get to the parents of the 3-year-olds and get them into that program, it's still within the district, and we're able to monitor that.
Except this program does feed them too.
Our special ed director would be responsible for that, and I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I'd have to get it and get back with you.
But basically, this is basically this, maybe not the exact same program, but a program like what was being run at this facility
yes,
last year with
previously.
3 and 4-year-olds.
Yes.
And it was well received by that community, is what I'm
Yes.
asking. Okay.
Mrs. Lyons, do we have any, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Do we have any idea why the Head Start program that was running the facility
Was not awarded the contract?
Yes.
We are not privy to that information. They
And at
just-
that time, did they ever provide the district with any information, data, or anything that would report to the district on how those kids were doing, or how many were attending school on a daily basis?
Right, well, we knew the numbers of how many were attending. I don't have that
Oh, okay.
information at the top of my head.
So they were providing some of that data to you?
Yes.
But you weren't given a reason for why that program was dissolved?
We were not told, we were just told the contract was not renewed with Tri-County Head Start and that they had awarded the contract to neighborhood centers.
So these children that are receiving the Head Start program are children that, under, for whatever circumstances, their parents can't afford daycare or other means of educating their children. Or because in this particular case, in the Kennelton area, there isn't any pre-K services out there,
Right.
correct?
Correct. If it wasn't for Pell Point. That's correct.
Or the Head Start
They
program?
can't
David.
attend pre-K at Beasley? The kids that are qualified for pre-K, they don't go to Beasley?
Yes.
We have a unit at Beasley. However, it wouldn't be able to accommodate all of the kids from Pell Point.
Because you only have a certain number of slots, right, in
Right.
Beasley, so they've all been all taken up, so you don't have any more slots
Right.
then. And all your slots in Seguin have been taken up as well, correct?
Well, in my opinion, I would rather start in September. I still don't understand starting midstream, and that's just my personal opinion. I think we need to look into a little bit more information and make a decision if we would want it to be for the 4-year-olds and have them monitored so that we can keep a good record of how they're progressing, just as we're doing at Seguin. I just, if we're going to do 4-year-olds here at Seguin and keep them monitoring and have good staffing with them, why, we need to maybe think of how could we do that at Powell Point within the school district. That's just my concern.
Okay. We can certainly look into that.
Because my concern is that there are children that probably have turned 4 after the cutoff, and that's probably why they're not in pre-K, correct? Because they still have to go by the September.
That could be the case for some of them.
And those kids are could still benefit from this program, even for half a year, and get them where they need to be when they start school in the fall.
Correct.
Because who knows what kind of environment or education or whatever they've been getting. And again, I hate to say no to anything that's going to feed our children, because we don't know what kind of food facilities they're getting from where they are. So, you know, I commend these ladies that came here the other night, because they've taken on a big task. And they said they've already been in Fort Bend and HISD. And I think that we can maybe request to see how some of they're doing within those areas and how they're well received from those districts too, if we can get some of that information.
And I'll just reiterate, I understand the 4-year-olds. I don't understand the 3-year-olds. I really don't. When we went to this roundtable, we were talking about pushing the young children and how kindergarten now, there's an expectation that they should know what first graders know. And the first graders are being expected to learn what second graders, that we're just going down, down, down. And we're really stressing out the children, and we are pushing them way too fast. And those 3-year-olds are the ones I guess I'm really more concerned about as to what is our purpose, what is our goal with them. And with the 4-year-olds, how do we account for whether this is a good program that we have some control over?
And with the 3-year-olds, they're working on developmental skills. It's not like they're opening books or textbooks, and it's mainly.
But we don't
those
have it in our
developmentals.
school district. We don't see the importance enough to do it in our school district.
But I'm talking about the 3 and 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's strictly a federally funded program. The programs that we have in our school district are often funded through the state. For example, the 3-year-old programs in special education are for children with severe developmental delays of one order or another. This particular program was designed by the federal government some years ago, and they did extensive research into the impact of vocabulary development on children who come from impoverished backgrounds. And so the 3-year-old program doesn't really focus on books or the alphabet or anything like that. It's the acquisition of language that's the single biggest barrier for children in poverty to be successful in the school system or in the academic world. The typical kindergartner parents have a extensive vocabulary, and the children acquire that vocabulary themselves as they come to school. If we look at the research on poverty, for example, the parent of a child in poverty has an expressive vocabulary, according to Ruby Payne's research, of about 5,000 words. That's the parent of a kindergartner in poverty. A 5-year-old in kindergarten from a middle-class family or an upper-class family has a vocabulary of about 5,000 words. And so when you look at that, that's just one piece of the research. The biggest motivation for this particular program was to help facilitate story time, talking, the kinds of experiences that many children in the middle class acquire, as you said, from their parents at home, or if both their parents happen to work from good quality daycare settings. I know that.
I guess, yeah, I'm also looking at, I know what you're talking, developmental language and everything. They do catch up. That's a known fact once they enter the school system. They do catch up. But with a 3-year-old in the program like what they're proposing is not set up or designed to have them excel in the system. They're taking in the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds for additional reasons. And how do we assure that the 3-year-olds that really, really need it are not the ones that are at home and they don't have the transportation to get to this facility? If that is our goal, is to get the very impoverished ones. How do we find out? Because they're going to have their own system. They're going to, NCI will provide some of the money. NCI also provides for childcare. They can, if they're eligible, the finances. So I want to focus more on the 4-year-olds.
The criteria for admission into the Head Start program is that the family is below the federal poverty level. So that's the primary criteria for it. And of course, there's a verification procedures, just like we have for the federal free lunch program that our schools use.
Is there any way we can monitor that?
Well, that's part of what the federal government does for the program. I mean, we would have to assume that the federal government is treating the Head Start program just as they treat us in monitoring and ensuring that we have provided that verification.
As I indicated earlier, because it is a MOU, that's a little bit different, and so the board can certainly request information from the Head Start program. As was indicated earlier, at least 98 students are projected to participate in the program. And if we got 98 students participating in the program that currently aren't participating in anything, there may be some advantage to that. But that's certainly up to the board. I can tell you that the group initially were trying to do what you suggested, waiting until next September, and they had several of the people in the Kendleton community to contact them directly and want to know why couldn't they move that program up earlier. So, and I think those individuals probably would be happy to visit with the board as well as to the reason why they were interested in implementing the program earlier.
And I guess I do want to point out our termination that anytime by giving 45 days advance notice, so there is an out if we're not pleased with the way things are going, that we can terminate this MOU with correct and curriculum.
And I think it's appropriate to ask them to provide reports to the board so that you can be satisfied with the work that they're doing. I don't think that they would be opposed to doing that.
I would just like it to be comparable to what we have at Seguin, you know, to make sure what those 4-year-olds would be getting is what the 4-year-olds at Seguin are getting. And that it should be a comparable, and we just don't have a measurement of how do we assure that. If you know, our name is going to be involved with this group. So, I know we have to, we need to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? May I just rather quickly ask about, can we request that it be monitored? Is that something later on? I mean, should I have said that before?
Well, if you're suggesting it as part of formal board action, yes, you've already taken the vote to approve the MOU. If you're making a request to the administration that they provide information, I heard Dr. Randall say that he felt certain that this organization would respond to requests for information, which is in and of itself is a form of monitoring.
It is duly noted.
Okay, thank you. I think we can go on to
yes, Madam Chairman, for the next item, I think we discussed most of the agenda items, but the transportation update, we'll ask Mr. McKeever and Mr. Jones to give you a quick update on the transportation and respond to any questions that you have.
Howdy. I do want to make one
comment. I'm very excited Mike Jones is here working.
I bet you
We
are.
all are.
Just a couple of highlights I wanted to look at. With the increased salary, we have increased the number of bus drivers, and it is going well. We have hired 40 drivers since June 1. We've lost 24, but we're still on the positive side of that delta, so we're doing well. We are reducing some of our double runs, and we're slowly getting down. We have 4 out of the Fulshire site, and we have 8 out of the Rosenberg site. We, from the past events, we have worked very hard with the schools and changing and looking at different procedures on how we do our discipline referrals. And that process is really starting to take off with the help of secondary ed and elementary ed. The process is going smooth, and those drivers are getting feedback, and that's going a lot quicker on their discipline referrals.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the discipline, real quick. You said the after-run reports will be turned in by 9 the next day. If that student's been kicked off that afternoon, are they allowed to get on in the morning?
We don't do the discipline, so we have to get that back to the schools, and by the time they get back to the bus terminals, it's after 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the
Right.
evening. And so they will turn in their paperwork. They either work on it that night, or they come in after their run in the morning and they turn it into the system.
Yes, they'll get it back on the bus the next morning,
Yes.
unless that driver deems that it is something really, really serious, and they will not.
Right.
The
let
bus
them-
driver
let
has
them on
the
bus.
authority to do that.
Bus. We had that to occur a couple of times already.
That is correct. Been a very serious offense.
So y'all do give the bus driver that authority in the
When
morning?
they will call for help
Back
at
up, okay.
that time.
When you say the double runs, what's kind of the time frame that students are waiting for for the bus to come at the end of the day? Is it 20 minutes, 30 minutes, longer than that? Or do you have any idea?
Sometimes they're on the bus ramp for probably 30 to 40 minutes before that final bus comes to pick them up.
Is that with the little ones or just? or
Mostly secondary on that.
Mostly secondary?
Yes.
Because the little ones, usually they're in the neighborhoods, they can get back to them.
We usually take whatever's doubled, they'll do the shortest run first
Right.
and then go back to the school to get those.
All right.
And we're hopefully we'll be eliminating those. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's what we're working towards.
I have a question. With the Skylert system, I know that one of the frustrations with the parents was just no consistency of the phone calls. They'd get one week, but they were double runs 3 times rather than the 3 calls, they only got 1. What are we doing to correct that?
We have training set up for the folks in Fulshire. I think that's been kind of the weak spot. And we have training set up for that. And in the meantime, I've asked them that if they have a situation like that and they're going to have a bus that's late and they don't have the ability to get in, to call and talk to the folks here at Rosenberg and have them send out the Skylert.
So they just weren't trained to do that?
I think some of them were trained, but they were having difficulty getting into the system. And hopefully the training, when they do that, they'll address all of that.
Is Skylert and Skyward connected? Is it
Yes,
one
ma'am.
system? So when Skyward is down, do we have a backup plan on how to notify those parents?
Then it goes back to the way we've done it in the past, whether it be an email or phone calls to those. It would take a lot longer to do it that way.
Oh, and I understand that, but not too long ago, we had Skyward down for probably 6 days.
Yes, ma'am.
So we need something in place that is a backup plan that's not an email or a phone call that would take a lot less time. Do you have any ideas of, and you don't have to tell me now, but perhaps something that needs to be, investigated, or we need a backup plan because Skyward, like every other computer system, isn't always 100%.
I've seen some notification systems out there that are like cell phone based that you can parents could set up an app and subscribe to it for a particular route, that we could do that. Not had that experience with Skyward,
Yet.
you know, having that kind of problem. But I have experienced Skyward, so it's certainly a possibility.
The incentive for the $100 stipend, obviously that was a good incentive. We recruited 40 drivers. Mr. Jones is a new director. Do you have any other ideas for recruiting drivers?
Well, that seems to be working. I'll tell you, in past experience for me, the banners, I know there's one tied to a bus out here by the fence. Those, in my experience, have worked better than anything else, and including the referrals. I think probably one thing that we want to do is look at maybe freshening up those signs and moving around and getting to different places in the community. I don't know, I'm not sure yet if we have those sitting out anywhere, but you know, having that sign attached to the bus makes it pretty easy to move around and sit out in front of elementary schools or, you know, in other places. And for me, that has been what's worked best in the past.
Okay.
What is the average age of the bus drivers? Do we have any young ones?
The average age?
Maybe I shouldn't even ask that, but I was just noticing that the drivers that were leaving, their reasons, and I'm just wondering, is there a certain college students or some?
We don't have many students.
Do we have any
that are-
younger?
Most of our drivers are not.
We do have a minimum age requirement, but
Okay,
to
that's a good-
factor age in as a hiring criteria is not possible.
Can't ask them.
Cannot factor age in as a hiring criteria, but we do have to have a minimum age requirement, which I believe is 18, Mike,
For CDL.
for your
You
CDL.
got to have the 18
Right, to have your
CDL.
CDL. So we have a minimum age requirement, but that's the only age requirement we have.
Okay, so, yeah, we can't
I
go
can't
out
tell
and
you that
say
much.
we need a certain younger group of.
Correct.
In my time over there, I have noticed a wide range. We have
Uh-huh.
young and not quite as
Experienced.
young.
Not quite as young.
Experience.
I like this. Like your
I was just curious when I saw the reasons that some of these were leaving, that, you know, do we have college age coming in trying to?
Well, I think
Part-time.
as I talked to some of the folks that were here previously, one of the things that we've got to do probably a better job of is in that recruitment and hiring process is it gets very tempting to just get those warm bodies in and get them in the seat. But part of that hiring process has to be finding the people who are suited to the job and the job is suited to them. Because it is a part-time job, and if you recruit and hire those people that are really looking for full-time work, they're never going to be satisfied there and they're going to leave. If you can, you know, when you talk to that person and you're looking for someone who, you know, their lifestyle works well for having a part-time job, then if you stick with those people, then they tend to stick around longer.
We're looking for commitment to the position.
Got to have a good fit, both ways.
Correct.
Don't have any other questions. I got one more. The handicap buses, is it my imagination that we have some rather large buses? I've been noticing, just driving around different districts and everything, they have the smaller handicap buses. Futuristically wise, is there a reason why we have large buses? Do we have same size doesn't fit all?
I've noticed that we have some up to about 59 passengers, and I think that's what are in the specs that we're looking for. And that's kind of has been the trend. You know, at one time we started out with a 35 passenger bus, which was just 6 rows of seats long, and they're pretty nice. But then you've run out of, if you have a chair or 2 chairs that you need to put on there, then you can run out of room pretty quick. So that's moved up to the 48 to a 53, and now a 59 is pretty standard. What's happened over the years is that those buses have become a lot more maneuverable. So even though it is longer, you know, a 59 passenger is basically 10 rows of seats long, which is a pretty good sized bus. But they have the ability to get down and make the turns where they need to get in and to get to those kids that have that need.
The 5-year-olds. We have this is safety, school safety month. I think. I had been notified by several parents, or I say parents, it's not particularly their children, but 5-year-olds being dropped off. We do not have a policy that someone has to be there for those 5-year-olds, the kindergarten. I know we have it for pre-K, but do we have a policy for letting off or dropping off the 5-year-olds? I keep saying 5-year-olds.
Our procedure's this year to use the
Kindergarten.
blue card system on the pre-K.
For pre-K.
And then next year have it grow, because that group would then become kindergartners, and have it grow to the kindergarten group. We chose to phase it in, and that was through the help of the principals as we got that system started.
So after this year, we will have a better system for the
That's the plan,
kindergarten?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I was asked, on some of the buses that are really having trouble, the bus drivers are really having trouble with their behavior, is there any way that we could have, we're shortage on bus drivers, but have an aide on that bus for like a month or so till they can possibly get straightened out, or leaving the bus drivers with the same students over and over, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse. I had a parent suggest or ask, had we ever thought about possibly putting an extra person on that bus until it can be corrected to some degree? Has that ever been discussed?
Well, in the very short time that I've been here, we have talked about that, looking at the possibility of putting an extra person on some of those routes. But I think even more importantly, we're looking at maybe separating some of those kids off of other buses, and maybe at how those routes are combined, and who's on the bus with who. And I think a lot of that will be solved with that problem. But that's something that we are working on. Met on that earlier this week. in fact.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Time to
Okay.
confuse the situation.
Yeah. I really appreciate this information. I would like to see this on a monthly basis. Eventually it may not be so much writing, but the bullet points.
Yeah, and-
How many drivers have you
My
lost?
past
How many
district, I did
accidents?
provide something like this on a monthly basis, just personnel changes,
Mm-hmm.
how many routes we were running, if we added routes, changes.
Discipline?
That
type
the
of thing, too.
discipline reports out of each school, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it'd be easy to get ready and submit, I think, each
Okay.
month.
Not that we need to discuss it every month, but it's just
No,
kind
but
of like
it's just
the
like the
facilities
maintenance
report
reports and that we
Right.
have. It would be very appreciative to have something like that on a monthly basis.
Can easily do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes, we love you.
Mr. Jones, thank you so much, and we are super excited about you being here with us.
Well, thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussions? Thank you all again very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if everything we have now has been covered, we will need to go to closed session. According to the Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, for following purposes. Time now is 8:25, according to that clock. We will reconvene. The time now is 8:39. Do we have any requests for any agenda items to be put on to the next?
Madam Chairman, I have a few requests, please.
Okay.
We are on crunch time with elementary school number 24 and 25. And since we have not RFQ'd an architect since 2006, I would like for us to visit that.
For discussion?
For discussion, yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else would like to see this on the agenda for discussion? Mr. Harrell? And I would too. So that is 3.
So now, the architects have already been selected for 24 and 25.
Yes, sir.
So
Right, no discussion for an RFQ for future.
Oh,
elementary
okay.
For
schools.
future. Are there any other items to be put on the agenda? Any requests?
I have another request, please.
Okay.
Because we appear to be behind on building our schools, I would like a discussion item on perhaps moving along with the demographer's current recommendation on when those schools should be opened or built. So in other words, I would like to visit the demographer's recommendation and discuss the options on how to build those schools and move as fast as we can.
Would we need the demographer to be here? Or we could just use her report?
new one comes in February.
Comes in February?
I think, personally, I would like to at least have a discussion on what the current one says so that we all have an idea of what was recommended last year in February.
Okay.
Could this be like a refresher course on what the timeline said we should be at and where we are?
Pretty much.
I wouldn't mind hearing that.
Okay, we have Mr. Harrell and Ms. Roberts, and you can add Ms. Kaminsky to that too. Are there any other items? Okay, if not, the meeting is adjourned. 8:42, thank you.